Hey guys, how's it going? This is Ryan with Rigs of Death Metal. Today we are joined by Rob and Nate of the Shred Den, as well as Glutton for Punishment. How y'all doing this evening?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me
Absolutely.
again, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. It's been a pleasure. I love shopping at the Shred Den for stuff that I really shouldn't be spending money on right now.
Right?
It's awesome place. Wish I lived a little bit closer so I could come by and check it out and harass y'all just to wind up buying some guitar strings or something after, finger pawing at a bunch of expensive guitars.
Right.
I'm sure you guys got plenty of that.
Yep. Yep.
Mostly just us doing it.
Yeah. Just mostly a lot of guitars right now.
Hey, that's kind of the beauty of actually owning a store, you know? You can it's really not wasting anybody's time. It's just your own investment at that point.
Yeah, it's definitely a passion project for sure.
Kind of on that note, Rob, I started following your page, well, following your page back before you guys announced the Shred Den, and you had just amassed an insane collection. Um, was was it kind of all with the intention of opening something like the Shred Den, or is it just you're just that passionate about that aspect of gear, of the collecting and
I love gear. So the collection I amassed, I've really amassed over 30 years time. And I don't like to think of myself as a collector either. I actively try to play as much of the instruments that I have. I buy them for a reason because I like them and I play them, even if I just use them for a show or two. But I just really love gear. Every piece has something different to offer, I think. So it just kind of accumulated to so much where the opportunity arose. My wife was kind of bugging me. She's like, "Can you get some of this shit out of the basement?" And opportunity came. It was like, "All right, cool. Well, what do you think about starting a guitar shop?" So we started with a lot of my inventory, and then getting BC Rich and Dean and Ernie Ball and all them guys on board and whatnot. But that's how it started. But as far as my gear collection, my personal gear collection, it's just been a passion. I just love gear, love guitars, love amps.
oh yeah. And I can't remember the exact timeline or anything. You guys had already started playing together before the Shred Den, right? So that
Yep.
kind of made it just a natural progression for Nate to kind of slide his way into the store too.
Yeah, Nate's actually a very good guitar instructor. So our shop's set up. It has extra rooms that I lease out for people if they want to give lessons. And part of the deal I have with Nate is he works a counter a day work for me, a week for me, and then he gives us lessons 3-4 days a week. And Nate and we jammed in 3 bands together, and we work together outside of the Shred Den. So yeah, it was just a natural progression for him, and it works out pretty well.
Killer.
It's kind of funny because when I moved here, what was it, 4 years ago now, 3 years ago? Uh, Rob's was the first place I stopped at in my U-Haul truck, and
Yep.
we're hanging out, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, do you want to be in Glutton for Punishment?" I'm like, "All right." He goes, "But you can be playing bass." I'm like, "Fair enough."
Yep.
But yeah, I wasn't even in town for an hour, and I was already in a band. So
Yep.
Dang. It's yeah, a lot of people will kind of squander around in their hometown for like a decade or so, like myself, before finding anybody to jam with. That's pretty sweet. Um, so I know from talking to a local mom and pop shop, you know, around me, that at least here within the last couple years, a lot of the money coming in is either for them, like a lot of starter kind of, guitars or packs or starter drums, piano, whatever, and lessons. That's kind of where their main source of income comes from. Would you would you say the lessons make up a pretty good bulk, or
um, we've been open for what, 8 months?
Yeah, we opened on March 2nd, but as far as the lessons things, I don't take a cut of that. That just goes straight to Nate. I'm kind of in a different ballpark from a lot of these other smaller shops, is that this isn't my main source of income by any means. I own 3 other companies. Um, So this is just more of a passion project. So we specifically try to cater to mid-level to high-end guitars. I got guitars in here that are $1,500 all the way up to 10,500 that are, hand built by Casey Crabtree and Neil Mosier. We kind of want to have our focus on kind of the metal genre, right? So I'm not trying to appeal to anybody else in that. If that sounds weird or not, I don't know. I don't care really, to be honest with you. I just, I like dealing the metal guitars. So I get that with people that are relying on it for their main source of income with all the starter packs and stuff like
Yeah,
that. We just don't have that here.
I mean, we have a few like cheaper guitars and whatnot, and like, well, half of my students are like started beginners, and then some of them are actually really well-renowned guitarists from around here, and just want to kind of like sharpen their chops a bit. So
sure.
I've got about 8 students right now, because it kind of fluctuates, because adults are busy and sometimes can't do lessons and they gotta cancel. But yeah, it's a wide variety of people I teach, and it brings people in the shop, and gets them looking around at some of the stuff, and hopefully buy some stuff. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
good.
Love it. Love hearing that there's still some like, a fresh crop of metalheads and future shredders coming through. Um,
You, you know what, dude? And it's funny because this happened to us today, but it's happened more than just today. So I'm 48. I've been around the Midwest metal scene for a long time, know a ton of people. But what's really cool is opening the shop and seeing all the younger people come in that I don't get in contact with because of the age difference. We had this 12-year-old coming today with his dad, and his dad was an old punk rock guy, right? And this dude's in our amp room just ripping Hetfield, picking on battery and playing the mechanics, not the Four Horsemen. He's actually playing the intro of the mechanics, the sped up version. This kid's 12, dude. And he's just ripping it up. And then we got this other kid that works here. His name's Matt McGee. He's great, does a lot of our tech work for us. He's only 23 and he's pretty involved in the scene. And his crew's coming in and kind of seeing where they are at in the new generation and keeping it alive is really, really cool, man.
Mhm.
awesome. Very exciting
So
to hear.
still a lot of people hungry for metal, and that's pretty much what I cater to for lessons, and people kind of know that. Like, I'm going to go to Natanic for rock and metal,
Yeah,
not country bluegrass. I had one guy that wanted to do like jazz stuff, and I'm like, I really am not your person for that. So I'll be honest with people when they come up to me. I'm not going to just try to take someone's money. Be like,
sure.
okay, let's try this. It's like, I don't think I'm the right fit for you. So
Yeah,
like Rob said, this is our second source of income, pretty much. So like, I don't pay my rent with lessons and stuff like that. So
sure. Which it's such an interesting perspective. Um, because I've had conversations with plenty of people where uh they look at, everything that kind of transpired with like Chondro guitars as an
Mhm.
example, and everybody, you know, like with Guitar Center and Sam Ash and like Business Eyes, like a lot of people kind of worry like where the industry is heading and all that stuff. So it's it's kind of cool to hear that this is just more passion project. Like we don't have to, you know, worry about, something, the same fate befalling you guys or what, what have you, that it's
I
a
mean, you
little
want to
bit
push.
different animal.
Yeah, it's. I mean, obviously, we're in this to make money to keep the
Sure.
store afloat, to pay the bills and whatnot. But yeah, fortunately, I get it too because Condro with Randall, I know Randall. Randall actually helped me out when I first started, gave me a lot of really good advice. And there's other shops in town where they got to make it their main source of income, and
Mhm.
fortunately, we don't have to do that at least at this point. But if I sell 2 guitars a week, that's a really good week. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
so that's we don't need to move guitars in mass to stay afloat.
Good. Good deal. Because frankly, I love that a place like your all's is open. Um, there's something to the like the specialized, like the niche. And Nate kind of touched on it there, just talking about with lessons, it's like if you're wanting to do jazz, I'm not your guy. Like there's plenty of those guys out there that they can do a bit of everything, like your session guy, your cover band guy.
Mhm.
Um, there's they always say, I've heard so many different varying opinions on that. So I want to hear what you guys have to say here. But like, um, the people that are like, oh, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, it could go at any second. So you got to have backup plans and need to be diverse, all these things. Just as a musician, right? Just talking about gigs. Um, so there has to be something said for the people that are so passionate about their niche, about being like their lane, that it's like, no, this is gonna work. Like, I'm going to make this work for me. Um, what what are your guys' thoughts on that? Like, do you feel like that resonates with you at all? And like, do you have like obviously you guys have several bands, so all metal, but slightly varying shades of it.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
like we specialize in metal, and that's what I was born and bred to do. And Rob's the same. I mean, that's why we hit it off. 6, 7 years when I started bugging him on Facebook. Then moved down here.
Yep.
It's just one project after the other. He'll hit me up like, "Hey, you want to do a thrash metal D beat project?" I'm like, "All right." "Hey, you want to do a punk project?" "All right." It's we keep things in the same vein, but you know, not our bands don't all sound the same, so
No.
it's pretty cool that way,
definitely
but still heavy.
Yep. And to his point, it's metal for me. I mean, I've, growing up, obviously I came into the thrash and was in thrash bands. And then in the late '90s, then the death metal started coming in. I started getting into that, and then just progressed to death metal is probably my main thing now. But I still love all that stuff, thrash and punk and crossover stuff with the punk thrash mix, which is what die hardcore is a little bit. And it's kind of silly lyrics and just having fun. But death metal is definitely my thing, number one. But I love it all, honestly. And you might even, don't tell anybody you don't catch me listening to a new metal song once in a while. But we won't go there.
Hey, there's some new metal jams out there, you know?
Yep. Right.
First Chris Barnes, now this.
Man, yeah. It's it's funny hearing some of those new metal guys too. Like a lot of them, like Ryan Martini from Mudvayne,
Hmm.
who's by any
Well,
measures such a sick bass player.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, I remember hearing an interview with him talking about how, he was doing like some Origin and Dying Fetus kind of stuff, like,
Hmm.
real technical, very death metal stuff. And then he said Slipknot came or Korn came out and it just kind of changed everything. And it was like, this is a new kind of heavy,
Yep.
and was all in on that. So I'm like, so it's funny. And in hindsight, we hear that and we're like, seems kind of backwards, but all right. But yeah, no, it's just again different shades of heavy or different shades of metal. It's interesting how diverse angry music can be. Um, Even speaking to hardcore punk and crossover, which
Yep.
love me some SOD.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yep. Exactly.
I think the nice thing is with whenever Rob comes and hits me up about starting another band, it's like, all right, sweet. We get to go guitar shopping.
Right. Everything's in a different tuning.
Yeah. Nothing can be the same.
No.
But yeah, it's a passion. Obviously, death metal is in our blood, and so is guitars. I've been playing since I was 7, and I'm not planning on quitting anytime soon. And I just fucking love it, dude.
Well, so a lot of these questions Nate's had the opportunity to answer before on the show. But Rob, just to kind of let people get to know you a little bit, when did you first get into playing, and what were the early years kind of like for you? What was your initial inspiration, and what really made you get into metal?
It's funny is they used to have these $5 tape bins where it was just random cassettes at Target stores. My mom brought me into one, and I was like 10 or 11 or something like that. She's like, "Oh, pick 2 tapes out of the thing," and I picked just on the album covers, and I wasn't even really into metal or anything. I'm just like, okay, cool, whatever. I grabbed Ride Lightning because I thought the cover was cool, and a Grateful Dead album, and brought them both home. I put the Grateful Dead in first, didn't like it immediately. Gave that to my dad. Even he threw that in the trash because he liked all the '70s hard rock and stuff, right? because I was listening to like AC/DC and Deep Purple and Black Sabbath with him. And I put that Metallica in, and I thought kind of the same thing right away. I'm like, well, this sucks because it starts that acoustic intro. And then that it just blast comes in, and it's just like, holy fuck. And that just like literally blew my mind. I had nothing, never heard anything like that before. So that got me into the metal, and then I got, found out about Motley Crue. Shout Out the Devil was probably the next album I got, and then it just went from there, right? And then probably within a year, I had this wooden sword from the Renaissance Festival. I'm drawing frets on it and stapling rubber bands to it for strings. And my parents are like, "Oh, maybe he wants a guitar." So I think I was 12 when I got my first guitar. Kind of played it on my own for 2 years, and then by the time I was 14, I was in bands playing at house parties and shit like that. And first show I played, I was 14 years old at a place called Rock and Roll Unlimited in Fridley, and it's been nonstop since. And it's sometimes when you get to a certain age, you're like, "What the fuck am I doing?" But you just can't stop, man. But it was, thrash metal and actually glam metal is what got me going and wanting to play guitar was Mick Mars and
Hell yeah.
Kirk Hammett.
Dude, Mick Mars had such amazing tone.
Dude, his riffs, dude, he's got riffs for days.
Oh
He,
yeah.
he was never talked about Motley Crue. It was always Tommy Lee and Nikki Sixx. It's like Mick Mars was fucking Motley Crue, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fucking love Motley Crue.
Yeah,
I still always think it's so cool that he made his like monitor wedges on stage have V30s in them.
right.
Like it's so extra. I love it.
Yeah. Well, even after he got booted from Motley Crue, I did listen to that solo album he put out a couple times. It's not that bad, but it's just like he's can't believe they fucking did that. But yeah, he was definitely the fucking heartbeat of that fucking operation. And then Tommy Lee and Nikki Sixx were, kind of the promoters of it or whatever, with the lifestyle. But
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. Kind of the I guess more the showman.
yep, exactly.
Yeah. Which I guess a lot of the most successful bands kind of have at least some element of that. I mean, they got to have some kind of show, like some kind of entertainment value, right?
Especially back in that time of day, where it's just, you went out to see a show because you're not searching shit up on YouTube, you're not seeing it in
Yeah.
social media and all that. You went out for an experience that you weren't going to be able to just pull up on your phone when you roll out of bed. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was a little bit of a different time, so putting on those shows probably left a bigger impact and memory. So yeah, the showmanship I think was way more important back then than it is now. Even though now it's probably still important, probably not as important as it was back then, I would imagine.
That's a little different now, yeah.
I say it is kind of different. You really get an insanely wide range when it comes to live shows anymore. Um, you go to see some kind of major pop act, and they basically tour with Cirque du Soleil with
Right. Yeah.
fireworks. Um,
Yeah.
and you can still catch like some basement punk shows and anywhere in between. It's kind of wild
Yeah.
of any of the shows you've got to play. Um, do you tend to prefer like playing somebody's house or mid-sized club or bar or
Go first.
Bigger club, the better for me, man.
yeah.
I've been fortunate to open for some bigger bands: Deicide, Overkill, Suffocation, Cannibal Corpse. It just doesn't get any better than being on a big stage, man, with a good crowd out there. Even though they're not there to see us, but I don't give a shit. It fucking rules, man. I don't like. I'm too old to haul gear into somebody's house. So give me a big stage where I can wheel the shit in. That's what I
Sure.
love.
That's fair.
Well,
Huh?
I was gonna say last winter Apothic did a couple day run with a couple of mass band Necrotisk and Witch Den, and we went from small like 250 person club to like what's big? It's about 700,
Oh yeah, big 900.
900 person club to a church basement. We did 3 shows in a row, and it just that last one, like Rob said, I'm not a DIY guy anymore. I'm 44 years old, and I'm not trying to be like a prima donna, but I'd like to be able to hear myself. Like when you walk in and the PA has literally one working speaker, I'm like, oh,
Right.
God, no.
Been there.
But yeah, I'd say those mid-level clubs are my favorite.
That's fair. Um, I haven't got to play in a while, but when my old band was more active, it was literally from month to month going between basement and living room shows to mid-sized club. And yeah, such a wide varying of experiences. Like there's so many pros and cons to either.
Yep.
On the one hand, super fun and definitely a really cool energy where you're, you know, as you're playing, you're practically in moshing with a bunch of drunkards in a living room.
Yep.
Don't have to worry as much about, load in and load out and tour managers for a headlining band yelling at you.
Hmm.
Uh, but boy, it is nice to hear yourself.
I think another thing too is I think Rob will agree with me on this one. We like to play nicer gear these days because we're older. I think we've earned a chance to play some, fairly expensive guitars, and having to play on a floor like at that church basement, having people like bump into me and stuff when I'm holding like a $3,000 guitar is like, I just I don't have that attitude anymore. I'm just like, please don't trip my guitar.
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely not a problem I had to worry about yet. But I since I haven't played a show in a while, I have accumulated a couple things like um yeah, like my one custom guitar I've got, I think I would probably vomit if somebody chipped it.
Dude. Oh,
Yeah. Uh okay. Speaking of gear, since we're primarily a gear channel, what exactly is your all setup for Glutton for Punishment? And does it kind of Rob, I imagine yours probably varies from band to band, kind of like we were all talking about earlier, like
Yep.
different guitars for different tunings. Um, amps and cabs differ as well.
Yeah. For Glutton, I started using a Kemper quite a few years ago, and the profile I was using was an Engel Powerball 2. And then I ended up getting, I used that for a good few years. And I actually blended that with on the mutilation process with Agnator Armageddon. And then I came
Okay.
across a Powerball 2 tube amp, and then I pretty much put the Kemper away. And then, so that was probably 2020. Yeah, around the pandemic time. And I've been using Engel ever since. Um, and then with Vader 412s, customs, and for what we do in A tuning, the angle is still so crisp, and the Vaders handle it well, where there's still note definition without getting lost.
Hmm.
So that's kind of what I like using for Glutton, and the special edition, Founders Edition, is the main head I've been using for a while for that. That's what we just did Flesh from Ruin. That's the head I used on that too.
Nice.
and Rob lets me use his gear because I'm not allowed to use my own this one. So same thing. It's the Vader 412s, except I'm using the Engel Inferno.
Yep.
And was that the Marty Friedman model?
Marty Freeman, yeah.
And
Yep.
that thing rips. Those Engels are fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah, those two heads I think blend really well together. And not that I'm telling Nate what gear he can use, come on now. But it's just I think it fits what we're doing on the blend, because the Founders Edition's got a lot more girth to it, and just kind of pounding, where the Inferno will kind of brighten it up a little bit and feed into it, and they blend really well without canceling each other out.
Gotcha.
So I'm big and do the same thing in die hardcore, try to mix the amps. I'm
Yep.
really into making sure that guitar players' tones mesh. Maybe to my own ears. I don't know if it matters to anybody else, but
It's
I think it makes a difference, especially if you're going to continually do a band, to have a sound that makes sense,
Yeah.
to instead of switching amps all the time and shit.
it's that nice crunchy old school death metal tone, and yeah, we plugged straight in, no pedals, nothing
Yeah, no
like that.
problems.
So it's just right into the head. That's what you're hearing.
Yep.
Nice. Do you know what's in the Vader cabinets? Eminence, I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
they're Eminence V12s.
B12s. Okay, of
Yep.
course.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh, those with any kind of angle head is kind of like that is like the go-to death metal stack if you
Hmm.
can afford them.
Yeah.
It's and then it's like when you graduate from just using like a 5150 through a Mesa oversize, and you actually get money, then you can afford the Engel and Vader cabinet.
Right.
Um, I haven't had the pleasure to try those heads out in person. I run a Kemper too,
Yep.
and have profiles of both of them, and I can definitely hear the kind of differences you're talking about between the two of them. That Inferno does have like this kind of bright, kind of
Yep.
chimey upper mid almost
Yep.
kind of cut, and the Founders just sounds massive.
Yes.
Dude, that amp is so
Yep.
fucking cool.
Yeah. So, and I think they're really, really, really good blend. So it's funny you mentioned the Mesa oversized caps because I'm actually a really big fan of those. I mean, you can go A1, AB, one A, one B for me between cabinets is, but on the Flush to Ruin, that's what we recorded with was the Founders Edition with the Vader cabinet and the Inferno actually with the Mesa oversized. So
Okay.
all those rhythm tracks, I think, really, really sound good blended together. Yep.
Nice. Um, do you tend to this is just a nerdy recording question, something I go back and forth on myself. Do you like to have um a left and a right guitar panned with the same amp tone? And then if you want to do a second amp tone, do another left and right for quad tracking, or do you like doing, one amp on the left, one amp and a different amp on the right? Kind of like an
Uh,
AC/DC sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. So I'm not sure what he did for his Apothic album. I know for the Glutton because I did all the rhythm guitars on the Glutton album.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's right left. I like having that right left, especially when you're listening on a good stereo system. You can tell. I mean, most people listen to Bluetooth speakers and shit nowadays.
Hmm.
They're not going to catch that. But if you got a nice 200-watt receiver and some Surin Vegas at home, you're gonna notice that a lot more. And I think that's I've always liked that dynamic in bands that split the guitars on them.
Gotcha. Nate, and I don't remember if we talked about that. For Apothic, is was did you do kind of a similar thing? Do you use a different amp for each side, or
Yeah,
kind of the same thing?
I did the EVH 50 watt um 5153
Mhm.
with God, what was I using? The Agnator cab, I think. And then Boogie Mark IV with an Agnator cab. So we just kind of went like I was using the BC Rich Pat O'Brien with the Mark IV and then the SD1 with the EVH. And those also blended to exactly what I wanted it to be, just kind of nice, crunchy with a little bit of warmth from the boogie and a little bit more saturation and gain with the EVH. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's very similar.
Okay. I all right, that's helped me make decisions for later. Um no, that's awesome. It's kind of why I never really get into quad tracking, like doing four guitar tracks. Like a lot of people love it, and I always kind of like the more old school approach, like just one guitar left, one guitar right. And it's kind of, then the other stuff basically sits in the middle roughly, and it it's kind of more AC/DC, a little bit more, you know, like if you're gonna go see a band, the guitar
Yeah.
over there, one over there. Um, but I've always, I guess, just consistency's sake, or maybe too lazy to change shit out.
Right.
I've always just done the same amp tone for both sides
Right.
and different performances, but now I've really need to try to change it up, maybe switch guitars or amps or something.
It just makes it more full sounding, I think. If you just change just a little bit, even if you just change your settings a bit.
Yep.
And especially if you change guitars with like different pickups, yeah, you're gonna get cool fucking tones, man.
Yeah. Even on the Flesh to Ruin album, I used a RR1T for both tracks, but two different ones because one I had the Seymour JBs, and then the other one I had the EMG 81 in there, and just the same guitar, same spec, but even the pickups alone will give you that much of a difference going into different amp and blending it all together.
Mhm.
I'm really huge on being picky with tones and little subtle differences. I think make a difference.
So on that note, what are obviously there's different tunings. Is there any other kind of guitar spec that you are looking at when you're picking a guitar out for a different project, or do you like kind of just mixing up? Is like, I'm gonna try this tuning on this active guitar versus a passive, or with a floating fixed, or you're like, no. Glutton needs to be some kind of EMG, and this band has to be some sort of like a Duncan, or is there anything like concrete like that?
Not, I don't think so for guitars so much, except for scale length. That's the only thing, because that's going to depend on the tuning. Because
Hmm.
for example, I love Les Pauls. It's big Les Paul nut, but I can't play that in Glutton, right? Because you're not going to get that thing to intonate at 24.75 and A standard. It's just going to be impossible without putting telephone wires on there. But guitars, I go through phases because I have like what I like is my main tone coming out of my amp. But then I'll be on a Black Winter kick. Seymour Duncan Black Winters. I still love them. They're probably still my favorite pickup. I started putting those in all my guitars for the longest time, and then I wanted to go back to the JBs for a while, and then I was on an EMG kick. So when it comes to the guitar spec itself, that's something I can kind of always tinker with a little bit more than I think with my guitar amp. Because switching on amps going to make, I think, more of a difference than a guitar or a pickup will. So the
That's fair.
guitar, switching the guitar and the guitar specs out gives me a little bit to tinkle to tinker with, but still keep my tone, so to speak, right?
Sure.
My only specifications is in Glutton, I need to play a 7 string. So I got the Ibanez Universe and the Mark Halem. Because I'm not a spec nerd. We've talked about that before, where I'm
Yeah,
like, I
yeah.
don't give a shit what's in it as long as it plays nice.
Sure.
So since I do the leads in Glutton, I wanted to stick with a 7 string so I'd have more a wider variety of options to
Hmm.
solo with. And then in Apothic, I only do 6 strings. So yeah, it's just that's what my only things I do.
For sure. Yeah, for me, the pickup thing is always more of a kind of a feel sort of
Mhm.
thing. Um, that or like, how hot is the pickup? Because I don't want to be changing my noise gate when I switch guitars.
Right. Yep.
That would be kind of the only hang up for me on, what guitars I'm taking with me for X gig or whatever. What is We'll just go with what's your go-to pickup, if anything? Do you have a favorite? Is the Black Winter still like your number one?
Yeah, yeah. I think the Black Winters, I always fall back on those. It's probably still my favorite, um, especially with the low tuning. I keep saying low tuning over and over again, but you really have to have kind of the right gear to make that work in lower tuning. So the Black Winter is another one that is dark. It's not overly driven, and it's articulate. That's
Mhm.
probably my favorite pickup right now.
I mean, it pairs. I mean, it makes sense too, especially with the Angle. Um, I always find that Angle has a kind of a more compressed and more controlled low end.
Hmm.
Um, the gain character is a lot more articulate, like you were saying. Everything comes through a lot clearer. So they're kind of perfect for, uh, B or lower tunings.
Yep.
But and honestly, the Eminent speakers kind of complement it just that much, that much further. Um, as far as the Les Pauls and for your hardcore band, are those all completely bone stock? Have you switched those out for anything?
No, stock. Yeah, I do have. I think that my favorite outside of my 76 is probably actually have an Adam Jones standard, the tool guy or whatever.
Yeah,
He's got a little, I don't know exactly which pickup's in there, but he's got a little bit of a hotter pickup in there.
I think it's a
Um,
JB.
is it a JB? I'm not
I
sure. I
I'm
just remember I picked one up and I
Yeah.
was like, holy shit, I gotta have this thing with the silver burst, and
Hmm.
it sounded, even the Slash, I have a few of the Slash ones too. Those have a little bit of different than the stock Les Paul pickup in them, and those are a little bit hotter too. Um, but yeah, I really like the Adam Jones and the Slash series standards. Those are pretty cool. They're pretty thick.
Oh yeah. Nate, I know you're not much of a spec nerd. Is there more of a standard tune guitar that you like to kind of noodle around on at home?
I my RG 550 was my go-to for the longest time.
Hmm.
But about what was it, like 6 months ago, there was another shop in town that shut down, and we bought a bunch of guitars from auction. And I ended up getting one of those Charvel satchels.
Oh,
Now that thing, is a fucking shredder. Like I'm not a, like I was never like a super strat kind of guy, but I like fell in love with that guitar and I ended up keeping it because I'm like, this thing just fucking rules, man. But yeah, I keep that in standard and sometimes I'll use it to teach, but mostly just sit around home and shredding solos and stuff. Yeah, that's my go-to for shredding now though.
Oh, that's awesome. Which colored satchel was it? I can't remember. Was it the purple one?
No, it was the black and white zebra stripe.
Okay. Okay.
The
I feel
copycat of basically, mix up of George Lynch and Eddie Van Halen's,
Yes.
satchel.
yeah, of course. That's fitting. That guy's a ripper too.
Dude,
Mhm.
awesome guitarist.
I've It's funny. I've found in the last couple years especially, I am a huge sucker for like 80s like super strat, like Kramer,
Yeah,
Charvel type stuff.
yeah.
Um dude, honestly, even the newer like uh more affordable import Kramers are actually pretty sick. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, a lot. What's that?
We need to get that hot dog one.
You with the hot dog Kramer. Have you seen the hot dog Kramer?
I have.
Mustard yellow with the hot dogs? Yeah, that's Nate's guitar for sure.
We need that.
Yeah.
I saw that hanging at a guitar center that I went to. I was like, it's like I should be that guy today that
Right?
asks for them to go on a lat because it was at the very top.
Of course. Yep. Where it should be. Top
Right.
shelf.
Like, hey, mind getting that down for me? Like, it's like, oh, you looking to buy this one? Nah,
No. Just need a photo op with it.
absolutely. Question. House fire. What guitar are you grabbing out of there, Rob?
Probably my Blood V Jackson custom shop.
Is that the double Rhodes?
No, no,
No.
it's the standard King V.
Okay.
Um,
Our standard.
no, just a custom shop KV2, blood splatter. It's probably my favorite, and I think because I put a little bit of work into that one because it's all mahogany. Because most of the guitars I play are alder,
Mhm.
And mahogany sucks up a lot of the tone from pickups. So I went through like 5 different pickups before I found one that actually made that guitar sing, and it ended up being a Dave Mustaine his thrash one or whatever. And
Okay.
I did a few shows with it, and then actually liked that one so much that kind of is a case queen on purpose. But that's probably my favorite. So that's the one I'm grabbing.
Interesting. That says a lot because it's got a lot of sibling rivalry going on.
Right?
Okay.
He's grabbing the SD1.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, who wants to?
I already knew that.
Yeah, SD1,
Yeah.
100%. That's
Yeah.
my fucking. That's my. I'm
I
getting
don't know
dirty with that
why.
thing.
I would have guessed the Pat O'Brien for some reason. I don't.
Oh, he doesn't have the Pat O'Brien anymore. He sold out to
Do you
me.
not? Oh,
Yeah.
I retired that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
damn.
I was actually playing it right before the podcast here.
Nice.
Yeah.
They
It sat in his case, and I know he wanted it, and like I switched to the SDs for Apothic, and that was my like number one for Apothic for a while. And once I got the SD1 and SD2, just like, hey, want to buy it? Yeah.
Yeah, guitar is sick. And Pat O'Brien's a huge influence on my playing. Not that you tell because I can't play like him, but yeah, so I always wanted that guitar from him, and he hadn't been playing it for a while. And finally, he's like, you know what? Yeah, fuck yeah, bring it over. Let's go.
So here's a little secret about the shred den. Rob and I just sell guitars back and forth.
That's probably true.
It's just a friend.
Yeah.
the money just goes in and out of the register. Goes
Yeah.
back and forth.
The dumbest business model ever.
It's like they'll never know.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I just thought of something that Nate brought up whenever we did our other podcast episode a while back. Just kind of some technique differences between the two of you all. And Rob, he kind of bragged on basically your very Hetfield-esque kind of rhythm playing. Where did you like intentionally develop that earlier on? Was it trying to just learn Metallica songs and
Yeah, James Hetfield was my guitar teacher. I mean, it was, all the tab books back in the day, and I didn't have any lessons. I'm all self-taught, and it was just playing all that old school thrash shit and learning all those songs and whatnot. And so I wish I could shred like Nate. He's a phenomenal lead player.
Thank you.
But rhythm was always my thing. That's just kind of how I grew up learning how to play guitar. I can pretend to solo here and there, but that's about it. But yeah, it's the rhythm is and all the down picking is just learning all that Slayer and Megadeth and Anthrax and Metallica back in the day. That's how I learned how to play guitar, and then started learning Cannibal Corpse shit, in early '90s and stuff like that. And just that's how I was taught.
I think that's what makes it a good mix with us, because our styles are very different. He's very heavy right-handed, and his down picking is it's very fucking Hetfield, which is awesome. But I don't do that. I'm a very light alternate picker. So it's a good mesh, and it actually works. Really fills the sound out with us two playing. That's why we're in 19 fucking bands together.
No, I get that. Me and my old guitar player were the same way. He was definitely much more the same school as Rob, and I took private lessons and went to music school, and I was very basically a freaking nerd about about a lot of it. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't know, man. I just learned how to play some Metallica riffs, and just his rhythm, his right hand was just made me feel like a total wimp." Um, he was, yeah, way more percussive. Which I've always been kind of curious, because I know a lot of even as late as like my age, I was I'm 33. Obviously you guys are a little bit older than me. I know for me, even I'd been playing a few years before YouTube was even really a thing. So now everybody has these lessons that tell you, oh yeah, if you want to sound like these early thrash bands, get good at down picking, right? If you want to get good at death metal, learn how to do trem picking efficiently, and this and that. There wasn't any of that uh, for really even up until the last 15 years. You
Yeah.
know, so is it like trial and error kind of thing? Was it just you sitting at home and okay, it sounds like this if I pick this way versus
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it comes down to. I mean, back in those days with the tab books, you got the tab and the notation. I couldn't read music, but I could read the letters or the numbers and okay, this is a down pick with the little fucking arrow. But it's all just learning the technique when you're playing to it with the cassette back then or CD is figuring out how heavy your palms got to be on there for the mute, or how hard you got to hit the strings. I mean, that was part of the fun maybe of learning is going through all that. Yeah, I can play all this here as it says on the tab book, but this hand here is really important to how this hand's going to sound. This hand's more important because this is the one that's going to bring the sound out of this hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, not having the YouTube and all that shit or formal instruction for me, I think that was kind of the fun part of it is learning, how do I do a pinch harmonic? How do I get these two in tune to do that? And how hard do I got to mute the strings, or just if my palms got to rest just a little bit off so it's not a heavy mute? I mean, that was a lot of fun. I still remember, I mean, that was 35 years ago learning that shit and getting frustrated. And then that first time you fucking do it, you're like, yes, you feel like you just fucking won the Olympics or something. And then you just do the same thing over and over again for like a fucking week until everybody's around you telling you to shut the fuck up about it. And then you got to go on to the next thing. But that was a lot of fun learning how to play guitar, man. I think it was more fun for me learning how to play guitar and getting excited over those moments than it is now.
So that's another cool thing about Rob and I. I was lessons from age 7 to 20, and the last 5 years was lessons 2 hours a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays of modes, scales, arpeggios, fucking perfect picking, fucking Yngwie Malmsteen shit. So we came from two different schools of learning how to play, but yet we can work together. And it's cool because someone who's not trained by the book, he can come up with some of the fucking coolest riffs. I'm I don't even know how you, because I'm so by the book, that shouldn't make sense, but it does, so I think we work well together that way too.
Another funny story too happened a couple of weeks ago. we were going to come up with our own little shows. How many death metal guys does it take to figure out a Danzig song? You should have seen him and I because we were trying to do it by fucking ear, dude. It took us like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it was the chorus section. We couldn't fucking figure it out.
What was it? Her Black Wings?
Yeah, her black with that chorus section.
Oh,
It's such an
man.
easy song.
It's so easy. But him and I are just going nuts over here. There's like fucking 6 notes in the whole song. We could
Yeah.
man. But that's just fun part of it. And even him with his, training and all that, and just me, learning shit that way before. I mean, that's the fun part about music, man.
My old band actually, we were a thrash band, but we did a cover of Her Black Wings.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
And I had to and we played in D standard, so I had to transpose it down and figure that shit out. Yeah, no, especially that chorus. It's different. The pacing and feel
Yeah.
of it is uh John Christ was one of my early guitar heroes, and I still want.
Oh, I love that early Danzig. Yep.
God, he was so good.
Mm-hmm.
Still is, but yeah, those albums, fucking
Yeah.
1, 3, and 4. That's all you need.
Did you do 2 out of there?
Purposely.
Something wrong with you.
You can leave out with Chris Barnes and fucking.
Jesus Christ. Wow.
Oh man, two's great.
Yeah, 2 was amazing.
You guys are just ganging up on me here.
With facts.
I figured if anything, you can maybe hate on on 3 a little bit because
Dude, 3 that's my number 1. Fucking love 3.
So that explains everything.
Well, because I like the best album. All right.
I love 3. I got it on CD back behind this little curtain here behind me.
So good. Love that album.
Oh, absolutely. Honestly, I found I think I found that album and Zach Wild's playing at the same time. So I was like, I fixated on learning how to do pinch harmonics during that time period.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nate mentioned the whole coming up through theory thing versus, more self-taught and thinking outside the box. And it's funny because it's one of those things that some very, I guess, more academic musicians kind of scoff at the non-theory dudes. Like, oh, say theory, ruins your creativity. It's like, oh, bullshit. It's the argument, right?
Yep.
Well, it is kind of true at the same time. You get into the habit of thinking in terms of scales and modes.
Yep.
It does influence you, even if it's subconsciously, right? You'll fall into a habit of like you won't play this note over here because that's out of the scale, or it's gonna sound wrong.
Yep.
It's like, says who? It
But
might.
you're still individually creative within that scope, though, right? I mean, there's so many different techniques and musicians and levels.
Mhm.
I mean, Steve Vai, I think, said it best. I mean, you play for yourself, period. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how trained you are or not. If you like what's coming out of that amp,
Yeah.
and I mean, fucking Paul Gilbert is a fucking beast. And you think he's held back by theory?
Right.
He's on a different fucking. He's in a different. From
Noodle Benincourt.
Oh God.
Right?
I love him.
You think those guys are held back by, I don't. I've heard that argument from other people who are self-taught. And I never understood that argument from other people who are self-taught. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? That dude's fucking ripping over there, man. What the fuck,
Yeah.
So I never got that argument.
My favorite musician of all time, not even just guitar player, not just whatever. Favorite musician, period. Any genre, style, instrument is Frank Zappa. Dude was brilliant and knew his theory inside and out. He could arrange for any instrument and did. And, but he also came up with the weirdest musical ideas you could at that time, stuff that nobody would have considered in 100 years.
Yeah.
Uh, so if somebody like that can be get the academic stamp of approval, he knows all the books, he knows all the bullshit. He can tell you exactly what he's doing. it's this interval or this scale, this mode, but that's not why he did it. He did it because that's just creatively where he wanted to go with it. He's not,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and he
That's
would,
what came out of him.
yeah, that dude would rearrange and, transpose and modulate his own songs live on the spot.
Hmm.
Just insane.
Yeah. Whole other level. His son rips too.
Oh, Dweezil? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and the stories with Vi talking about what Frank used to put Vi through and all that shit, and having to fucking chart all this shit for him, and yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I love it. I love Steve Vai's like his audition story.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
great.
How he thought he didn't get the job or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and like Frank talking shit to him, like just
Yeah.
busting his balls.
Yeah.
Uh, so this is a bit. It seems like a little bit of a 90-degree turn, but there was a segue mentally for me. I was just kind of thinking of Frank and his creative direction with his lyrics and whatnot. Do you get involved in the lyric writing? Either of you get involved in the lyric writing for your projects at all?
I can't write anything lyrically to save my life. I'm not that guy.
Mm-mm. Don't
No.
want nothing to do with it.
Mm.
It's gonna sound like a fifth grader fucking
Yeah, it's
wrote a song.
yeah, it's I think there's a couple songs on the Purified and Blood album because our vocalist left while we were already in the studio, and Aaron Whitesides, who was the other guitar player at the time,
Mhm.
he's a very good vocalist. So him and I split the vocal duties, and we had to come up and write lyrics for 8 songs real quick. But there's Purified and Blood. I wrote the lyrics for that. It's probably the only song I've written in my life lyrically that I'm happy with. But the other songs on that album, it's bad lyrically. I'm not a lyricist at all by any means.
Sure. I've forced myself to do it for a handful of times because otherwise it wasn't gonna happen.
Right.
It always feels so forced, and I'm always so critical of it afterwards. It's yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
and there's got vocalists that are lyricists. They're just like guitar players. I mean, it can just flow out of them, and it makes sense, and it flows. I mean,
yeah,
and that's cool. When something wants to be creative out of me, I pick up my guitar.
yeah.
I wish I was a wordsmith, but I'm just not.
If you put me in charge of writing lyrics, everything's gonna be about Satan.
Yeah, I
Hey,
come up with I come up with song titles like for Die Hardcore, Seeing Police,
Yep.
Punch God in the Face. I come up with song titles, but I make the vocalist write the lyrics for it.
my old high school band, we did the same thing. But that was kind of during the time period where bands would have song titles that had absolutely zero to do with the lyrics.
Right?
Like, um, I don't know, like inside jokes and shit. Like,
Right? Yeah.
but I do miss that period of time with like See You Next Tuesday and bands like that. What would you say is the direction that you're wanting the Shred Den to go? Like for example, like who all do you carry now versus who are you hoping to carry in the near future, maybe?
Yeah. So currently, our what's most known as BC Rich and Dean. We also carry Vader cabinets, Legion Guitars, which is Chad Pettit's company out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He was the original owner of Blackheart Guitars. Harvey Audio, Haunted Labs, we carry Michael Klein, who does the Devic pedal for Sammy. We're also going to be carrying Sammy's new signature amp through Michael Klein here at the Shred Den. Will be, as far as I understand, the exclusive store to sell those. As far as the future, I think what we have right now is pretty good. I would like to get Rixic bases, custom bass builder here in Minnesota. We sold one of his. We got another one here for him. But I'd like to do kind of some more really quality independent stuff, like the Vader and the Legion and stuff like that. That's kind of geared towards the metal. ESP and I have talked. I can get an ESP. I'm technically an ESP dealer right now. I just haven't placed an order, I guess, so to speak. Um, yeah, Angle. I can get Engles. So I think 2025 we'll beef it up a little more with stock and inventory. I think we got decent inventory now, but we'll definitely have some new stuff coming in next year. But as far as the vision of it, just keeping the vision as it is now, and just some get some more gear in here and get some more people in here and try to appeal to the metal pointy crowd, give them what they want.
Oh yeah. And and I to kind of speak to something you were talking about earlier, uh, there's there's like a weird misconception in the guitar world that a lot of these higher end instruments are for main like basically like blues lawyers, just in this case like the metal crowd. um I don't know what's your opinion on these high end extreme instruments that maybe a lot of metal bands, because obviously extreme metal doesn't make a whole lot of money, so it's a very small kind of niche market. You are obviously somebody who is able to pick these up, and you use them to create some really killer music. You sell plenty of them to people that I'm sure are also creating killer music. I mean, what's your 2 cents in on kind of that stigma?
There's a stigma, as far, as you always see the guys, it's funny because some of the guys that say, oh, I'd never pay more than $1,000 for a guitar. You don't need anything more than that. You're right. You don't. Nobody needs anything more than, even $500-$600 guitar. But there's people out there like myself and people that have bought stuff from my shop and other shops that I've shopped at, like Condro or Capital Guitars, where they have $8,000-$10,000 guitar. They sell them too, metal ones, So there's definitely people out there that like them. I like them. I've been playing custom shops for 20 years, right? I've been buying expensive guitars. I've been fortunate to do so. Um, but is there a difference? Absolutely, is there a difference? Is there that big of a difference where it's going to affect somebody's playing? Probably not. Maybe a little more comfort level if you're looking for a certain spec. But I like them. That's kind of what drove me to kind of make sure that I wanted to focus the shop on the mid to high level stuff. And we've sold. I mean, shit, we've sold a Mosher bitch for 10 grand. Just sold a Casey Crabtree Warlock for 9 grand. I mean, there's people out there buying this shit. You know what I mean? So, but teach your own. If you got Eric Rutans playing a $10,000 Casey Crabtree fucking Ironbird, right?
Right.
So and that's getting used on stage every night. Now, granted, he's endorsed, but if you were to buy that off the street, the custom shop one, you're paying 10 grand for it, and a few people have them in their arsenals at home. So there's definitely a market for it. I mean, they're not flying off the shelves by any means, but and the people that don't want to spend that kind of money, cool.
We got the imports for
We
you.
got the imports for you.
Yeah, it's I always found it kind of interesting because you don't hear that kind of negativity usually when it comes to like, really, really nice cars like a Ferrari or something. You
Right?
don't see somebody driving around in a Camry or, whatever going so unnecessary. And
That that's a great take. It's a great take, though. It's true. You don't. I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but yeah, that's true. I mean, I think musicians are probably a little more
jealous.
bitter. But yeah, exactly. There you go. You know, um, but it is what it is. There's something out there for everybody. But I definitely like, the most I personally spent on a guitar for myself was $8,200. I bought it was one of the double roads, the Bloodshot double roads, and I only bought that a few years ago from Capital Guitars.
That's the one I was thinking of earlier.
Yeah, yeah, and
I
that's
love that thing.
that's like my main one right now that I'm using for all the gigs. But I'm still playing that actively, live. I'm bringing it out. It's in my car. Don't worry, I bring it into the hotel room when I travel. I don't leave it in my car, so you're not going to see that post. Oh my god, my gear's out of my car. But that's why I like to say I'm not a collector, even though I have a ton of shit. I don't give a shit what I paid for it. I'm going to play it because I bought it because I like it, not to look at it.
absolutely. And I think that's just like I said, jealousy that creates this stigma because I just don't see a whole lot of people buying these expensive guitars just to hang up them on the wall, going like, hell yeah, I bought that.
Yeah,
You know,
there's a few out there. Trust me, I know a few because
really.
having the collection that I do, it's not. I mean, there's guys out there that make me look like I'm a have convenience store. I mean, it's ridiculous. Some of these people that and they are collectors. They have hundreds and hundreds of it. Nate knows some of the same people I'm talking about,
Yeah,
and good for them. I mean, that's what they want to do. They want to collect them, and there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, you do whatever the fuck you want with your money and do whatever you want with what you buy. But yeah, there's a lot of people out there just definitely collectors.
definitely jealousy.
Yeah.
So I'm jealous.
Hey, at the end of the day, I obviously I'm a huge gear nerd. I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't. But yeah, I just think of guitar building as such an intriguing art form and craft in and of itself. So I'm always excited to see this stuff, even if I don't think I'll ever be able to afford one. I'm so glad that they're out there and that there are people that are buying and playing them. I love that it's still, stimulating the market and the economy in some kind of way so that these will continue to be made. Why people, shit on them is beyond me. It's like, okay, well, go throw your favorite, Duncan into a Squire Strat and shut up then.
Right,
Let
exactly.
let let
Yeah,
somebody in let Casey Crabtree cook.
yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
Let him cook.
yeah.
yeah.
Joe Williams from Jackson.
Oh fuck yeah.
Those are my probably two favorite builders. Joe Williams from Jackson. I got quite a few of his. His builds are a little different, and then Casey Crabtree. I got quite a few of his builds. By far, I think the two best luthiers in the modern era, so to speak. Love their shit. Both their guys' stuff.
Oh yeah. I follow Joe Williams on Instagram and
Yeah,
I I just goddamn.
yeah, yeah.
Just insane builds.
Hmm.
And I've got to feature at least a small handful of smaller builders on here. Had Chad on here a couple of times talking about Legion. We've had Rob from RIP Guitars. Um, I work with Kyle from WKM, and then of course Royce from Heathen. Like, it's just such a good time to be a guitar player. There's
Yeah, right.
so many awesome guys out there doing work, just buying straight off the guy that's going to build your instrument for you,
Yep.
and honestly, a lot of them, uh, killer work. That's probably only about half of what Joe Williams might be,
Right.
or Jackson rather might be
Yeah.
charging you.
Right. Yeah.
But well, is before we kind of hop off here, is there anything you want to promote next, like next project or anything going on with the Shred Den? Any kind of cool clinics or appearances that you got planned you want to plug on here?
Yeah, we just had Sammy in here not too long ago from Goat Horror. That went over. That was a kind of our first clinic. That was pretty cool. We're coming up to the end of the year, so we're kind of focused on we're going to do probably a Black Friday sale here coming up in a couple weeks, right? Black Metal Friday. We're going to do a theme. And then get through the holidays, and then probably in February start planning out our 2025 as far as what we're going to do for events. I mean, we did some cookouts and stuff last year. Where we're at, we have a very big parking lot. We might do a show or something, and then see who's coming through, and if we could schedule some more clinics and stuff like that. Um, so anybody that wants to follow us on social media, the Shred Den. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and the website address to purchase anything is www.theshredden.net. We have a Reverb page too. And then musically, Glutton, we're doing a show out of town next Friday, and then after that, we're shutting down, taking a writing break to kind of write the next album. We got a couple festivals booked already for next summer, but we're gonna be under the rocks for a little bit there.
Same with Apothic. We're on a writing break too.
Oh, okay. Well, Nate, unfortunately, you've got to answer this last question. But Rob, we can throw this at you. Give us your Mount Rushmore of bands or albums, uh, preferably death metal.
Well, I Dave Mustaine, sorry. Pat O'Brien. Um, hmm, did I put Head up there? Bobby Gustafson. And I don't know if I can put Hetfield up there.
Just get rid of Dave Mustaine.
Oh, yeah, I got to put Het in there, man. He was a huge influence. So yeah, Mustaine, Hetfield, Pat O'Brien, Bobby Gustafson. That's my Mount Rushmore.
Fuck yeah. Love it. Well, yeah, guys, I want to thank you all for coming on the show.
Dude, thank
Uh,
you.
Thank you. Appreciate
I'm
it.
huge fan of the Shred Den. One of these days, I'll figure out an excuse to make my way out there, stop by, and
Come on out, man.
Yeah, we'll make it. We'll make it. We'll make it a day, man.
We're big
absolutely
fans of yours too, so
Yep.
we appreciate you.
appreciate that. Appreciate that, guys. Well, thank you all so much, and yeah, thank everybody for tuning in, and yeah, comment down below. Check these guys out. I'll put all the links down in the description. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Else.
Later.